Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to talk about paper stretching, specifically stretching 100% cotton watercolor paper using gummed paper tape and Gator foam board. So if you're not interested in going to these lengths to stretch your watercolor paper, you can move on. I've got other great videos you can go watch. But if you are, stick around and I'm going to show you my proven method of stretching paper. Let's do it. UPS just came and I'm really excited. Let's open it. Okay, guys, enjoy this lovely strange view of my studio. Okay, so as you know, I have been stretching my watercolor paper for years, and I've been stretching it on like reclaimed, repurposed. This is like a wooden puzzle board made of like particle board, and I painted it, and this is what I use to stretch my paper on. It's kind of heavy. It has worked out okay, but my friend Jess of Aquila Watercolor mentioned on her Instagram that Cheap Joe's sells Gator foam board, and I have been looking everywhere for it, like everywhere, to no avail. And so I went ahead and got some, and I'm so flipping excited to open it. So Cheap Joe's is an art store, an online art store and physical art store based out of, forgive me, I think it's North or South Carolina. Maybe. And rest in peace, Cheap Joe. But he did pass away. This is him right here. He did pass away last year, unfortunately. And hopefully the company keeps going strong. Anyway, this is my first, maybe second time ordering from Cheap Joe's. I am so excited because I've been wanting something a little more lightweight, a little bit easier for not just stretching my watercolor paper, but just taping my paper too. Something that is easy to store, because you know what? I'm teaching multiple students throughout the week and we're all working on different projects. And the deal is that I've got paintings just randomly all over the place taped to boards. So I just need a better solution. So I went ahead and ordered this, and this is how it came. It's all like totally protected. Look at that. The corners are protected. It's bubble wrapped. It's got cardboard. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that's satisfying bubble wrap, you guys. I'll play with that later. And you'll have to forgive my voice. I've been a little bit under the weather. So here we go. We got a note from Joe. Thanks for being a great customer. Great company. I have heard nothing but good about them. This is... Oh, and they even included something. Gator foam watercolor backing board. Okay, so I needed to meet the minimum shipping requirements, and so I ended up throwing one more in. But this stuff is so awesome. Apparently it's waterproof, but it doesn't look waterproof. Oh, is it waterproof? I guess it is. I was worried there for a second. I was like, this isn't waterproof. I can't really stretch paper on it, but look at that. Totally waterproof. The core is waterproof, and this is like a plastic. Do you hear that? Anyway, so this is the size. One of the corners is broken already. Shoot, I heard that the corners are kind of fragile, and so if you drop it on a corner, that it may break. It's not the end of the world. I really wanted to get some large ones, and then I can either keep them big for bigger paintings, or I can cut them into quarters for my smaller paintings. So they protected the corners nicely, except for this one, which was just floating around. I'm not very good at unboxings, you guys. I'm sorry. This is not my forte. I ride the struggle bus quite often. Gotta get all that away from my space heater. That would be lovely. This is so lightweight. Yeah, this alone weighs less than this. Oh, so that's awesome. I am so stoked. And yes, I will be cutting this to size. I don't need it this big. So my paintings are usually a quarter sheet. And this is 30 by 22. And if you guys know, that is the size of an imperial sheet of paper. I brought you over to my handy dandy Logan Artist Elite Mat Cutter. I bought this a couple of years ago and it has been the best investment for my studio. I cut watercolor paper with it. I make sketchbooks. I can cut foam core board. I've never done this before though. I'm not going to be lying to you. This is my first time cutting this stuff. So this is like a plastic coating. It's matte, but it's plastic. And look how thick that bad boy is. So I think what I'm going to have to do is cut through the first layer, flip it over, and then cut the other half. So this does have a 3/16 inch foam board cutter, but do you see that doesn't go that far? So yeah, we're going to have to do half and half. Now, I need to say this. Essentially, I could just use this. But I don't know. I kind of want to use this because it has the guard and it's a guide, not a guard, but you know what I mean. So basically what we're going to do, this is 30 inches this way. I need it to be in half, so we're going to do 15. And I've got over here, there is a guide. You can't not see it. I apologize for that. And this comes down, and it's not even flat. And then here we go. I don't know. Oh, it cut through it. It cut through it. I think I can snap it. Hold on. Let's just see if I can line it. Oh, yeah. I can snap it. Oh, sweet! Guys, did you see that? So it's not like smooth. I might have to, I don't want to get cut on that. I might have to take some sandpaper to that and smooth it out. But look at that. That was so easy. You could do that with a blade and a ruler. You could. Okay, so I've got some 400 grit sandpaper. It's very smooth. I just wanted something to kind of get that one edge smoothed out. I don't want to cut myself on this stuff. It's like sharp. Okay. See how that just kind of smoothed it out? Perfect. I could have turned it over and just cut the other side, but it was just easy to snap it. Compared to what I usually do, which is freaking plywood, I have to go to the hardware store, buy a big sheet of plywood, bring it home. Me and my husband will cut it on like a bandsaw, and I have to sand it. I have to seal it with like a deck sealer. I have to do several coats, wait for it to dry. This is so easy. All I did was cut it. I sanded the edge and it's ready. It's ready to go. I can now use it to stretch paper. Okay, so here's a full sheet. This is my favorite paper. It's the Fabriano Artistico soft press, extra white, 140 GSM, or no, 140 pound, 300 GSM. And I need to cut this in half because essentially we're going to be doing a half sheet painting. So let's do it. Okay, so I did all that work and then I decided that this paper is the same size as the board. And so I went ahead and grabbed a full-size board and I am going to stretch this on a full-size board because I need the gummed paper tape to be able to be on the board and not over the edges. So let's go ahead and get stretching. Now the first thing I need is I have a little clean water pot. I gotta make sure it has no hairs or dust or anything in it. And this is my brush that I use. It's the Winsor Newton something or other. It's old. I inherited it. I only use this for paper stretching. I use it to just paint water on. I don't soak my paper. It's not necessary to soak your paper in like a vat of water. It really isn't. I just get both sides wet with a brush, and I will use, here I have distilled water from good old Wally World. I like to use distilled water because we are on a well and we have iron in our water, and I don't want that to discolor my paper. And some people ask about, like, for example, if you have chlorine in your water, is that going to affect it? I don't know. It's just a safe bet to use distilled water so that you know there's nothing in it. Now, what I like to do before I start is on the correct side of the paper, which is this side, I'm going to mark off 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So the gummed paper tape that I'm using is huge. You don't need huge gummed paper tape. I like this. This is an industrial. Look at this bad boy. It's dirty on the edges because I got it on eBay. It was from a warehouse sale. And what I liked about it is, first off, it's white. Second, it doesn't have the reinforcements. I don't need it reinforced, right? So the reinforced kind has like threads running through it. You don't want that. So there's this kind, and then there's this kind. So there's the brown one. And I didn't have a lot of luck with this. This is called Prince Rabbit. I got it on Amazon. It hasn't been the best. It worked okay, but some of it didn't adhere. And I just like white better. It looks nicer to me. And if I have to leave any of the gummed paper tape on the edge under the mat, it just looks more professional. But anyway, I cannot tell you where I got this. I don't know what brand it is. All I know is I bought it on eBay and I love it. And I hope I can find something similar, because the kind you buy that's white, that's made for paper stretching, is about half this size. I paid $5 plus $10 shipping. So I paid $15 for this. And I paid like $20 for 3 of these tiny little rolls. And you see that that's half the size, right? So it's 1.5 inch, whereas this is 3 inch. So anyway, it's awesome. It might be overkill, but I love it. So before you bring any water into the situation, make sure to cut your paper, because you do not want this roll getting wet. Like, you do not want this anywhere near water till it's time. So I'm going to measure and then some. I like it to go a little bit past. So I'm going to do 2 strips for that side. Then I'm going to measure this way. And do 2 of those. And then I'm going to put the roll up and away from water. Now, let's get this out of the way, right? We're going to put this on a different table, away from water. Now, like I was trying to get at, I'm going to make my marks on my paper. So I'm going to have it be 1 inch. I don't need this painting to be quite this big. I will have to cut off those edges. You cannot get the tape off after. It's not a satisfying tape peel. You literally have to cut it off. So if that's not something you want to do, you need to take that into consideration before stretching your paper. You can use bulldog clips and staples instead to do this. I've tried both. This is my favorite way. It's more secure. So what I do is I just make marks on the corners of each corner. One inch on each edge. Sorry about my phone the camera keeps trying to focus. It's probably really annoying. This is something I enjoy. If I didn't enjoy this, I don't know if I would do it. And this is, like I said, this is a commission. I've been paid to do this, and it's going in a frame. It's a gift. So my friend who commissioned this it's a gift for someone else. It's very important to me that I stretch this properly so that when it's time to frame it, it'll go in a frame. I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried to frame a painting that's buckled and stretched and warped and shrunken, it's a nightmare. And it's always a little bit scary trying to iron it after or, get it flat. So I just like to do it straight out of the gate. And it is a delight to paint on paper that's already been stretched. Ooh, I think that was way crooked. Did you see that? Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna have to erase that because that's part of the painting and I don't want it on there. So this is my little gummed eraser that I use for everything. Normally I wear gloves. If you have oily skin or you wear lotion or ointments or anything like that, you do want to wear gloves when you're handling paper. But I just washed my hands. I know they're fine. So just either wash your hands or wear gloves to make sure that you don't get oils on the paper. It sucks trying to paint on paper that has oil on it. So I'm just measuring top to bottom. It's important to me when I put the gummed paper tape on that I give myself a guideline. I've tried without, and I hate getting it crooked, so it's just better to take the time to get it right. You'll want to take into consideration what the size of your painting is going to be after you have this area, because I will be matting this, and so I can put the mat over this area. That's totally fine. That's a half sheet, a half imperial sheet. I literally took a full sheet and cut it in half. You will lose your deckled edge. That is one thing to take into consideration. If you're worried about that, you can still stretch your paper using bulldog clips. So you would just clip this to the board that's the same exact size while it's wet. So you would get the whole paper wet, clip it to your board so that as it dries, it stays nice and stretched. You can do staples. I've tried that. I don't love staples because it does leave holes in the paper. But like I said, if you're matting it, the mat is going to cover up however much of the paper you want it to cover. And that's another reason why I bought that mat cutter, because I make my own custom mats. I mess up a lot. I'm trying to keep in mind how I'm going to be painting this. Like, this is going to take up a lot of my desk space. So I kind of think I want it to be like down on this corner more, because I can put my palette here or whatever. And I'm going to start on the back side. I've got my water, I've got my brush, and then I will also need my sponge. This is my dedicated sponge just for paper stretching. I don't use it for anything else. And what I do is I dip it in my water for a minute and just let it soak up that water. Because this is what I'm going to do to wet the gummed paper tape. Like, it's like when you're licking a stamp, right? You lick a stamp with your tongue. This essentially is for licking the gummed paper tape, if that makes sense. I'm not about to sit and lick my gummed paper tape. Gross. Have you guys seen that Seinfeld episode? Susan. Poor Susan. She licked too many stamps. Okay, so it's good and wet. It's good and moist, and it needs to be wet enough to not soak the gummed paper tape, but get that glue activated. So I'm going to flip this over. I start on the back side, and I need to make sure I have plenty of water. We're going to soak this paper. Okay, so we're going to soak the paper like a lot. And I normally only do quarter sheet. So this is fun for me to get to stretch a larger sheet of paper. And the larger the sheet of paper you stretch, the more surface area you're going to want that gummed paper tape to cover, to hold, to really get a good grip. Because as this paper dries, it's going to shrink. The cotton fibers shrink, and that's essentially what stretches it. I'm not doing any stretching. I had somebody ask that the other day, and it's a good question. She said, I didn't see any stretching process, like you didn't physically stretch it. No, I'm not stretching it. It's going to stretch itself as it shrinks. Those fibers are going to dry and shrink, and the paper is going to be held firm by that gummed paper tape. So I get the backside completely wet. I don't want to miss a single spot. And you can look at the shine and see if you missed a spot. And then I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing to the backside. Sorry, this is the front side. I'm going to do the same thing to the front now. And if you'll notice, even though this mat board or this Gator board, it looks matte, it does not look like it's waterproof. It is. I was so surprised that it's waterproof. I mean, you can see the water beating up on it. Anywhere that you get like a bubble like that, it just means it's not wet on the other side, and you need to make sure that it's wet. I'm not pushing hard with this brush. I don't want to remove the sizing of the paper because it does have sizing. I'm gently getting it wet. I'm not being super aggressive with this. I'm just painting the water on. And I do find this very relaxing. I'll often stretch 7 or 8 sheets at a time so that I have them ready when I need them. But lately I'm not doing as many commissions. Now that I'm teaching, I'm focusing on that. And I don't really stretch my paper for just teaching. But I do have a few Christmas commissions coming up. So, also if I'm creating an artwork that I want to have hung in a gallery, or I'm entering it into a contest or whatever, I will stretch it. So my own work I will stretch. Okay, so you can see how wet that is, and I'm going to let that sit for just a minute until it soaks up that water. So the fibers in the paper really need a minute to soak, maybe like 5 minutes. Okay, so it looks good, and you can still see it's still shiny. It's not dry yet. But what I want to do is take a clean, this is really important. This is a clean cloth. I did not use fabric softener on these. I just washed these in the washing machine with vinegar instead of fabric softener because these need to be absorbent. These are the cloths I use in my studio for my painting. Also, fabric softener would not be good to get on your paper because you know how sometimes it leaves residue behind. Right now what I'm doing is I'm just getting the excess water just off the edge, not the center, just this edge here. I don't want any water drops. I'm gonna like dry it just on the edges. This is important because you don't want water seeping up under the tape and releasing it. Okay, I want to show you what I mean. Do you see that? Dry on the edge. It's still kind of wet in the middle. And we want to get as much excess water off the edges as we can. Okay, so it's flat right now. And you want to make sure to have some paper towels handy. This has ink on it somehow. I'm not sure. I got to be careful about that. Make sure to have some paper towels handy. And now it's time to start getting your pieces. So this is for this edge. So you're going to want to do top, side, side, bottom, because you want to alternate, right? Like you don't want to do top, top. You want to do top, adjacent, that, adjacent. So what you're going to do is there's a matte side and a shiny side. The shiny side is what has, you can see where the glue is, okay? So each tape's going to be different. But on this one, it's this side. You can feel it. So you're going to take your sponge that's good and you see that? That's about how wet it is. Okay. I'm going to zoom you into this. I usually don't put it on the paper. I just want you to be able to see it. Now I'm going to lay shiny side down on the sponge. Sorry that it's off center. And you're going to hold your hand on it firmly and pull. Okay, does that make sense? See, this is why I don't put the sponge on the paper. It gets little things on it. We'll get that off. I'm not worried about it too much. I need to work fast, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to zoom you back out. Okay. Now this is the key moment. You got to work quickly because this will start to dry. And now we line it up. See how it's already started to dry because of that distraction that I had. Now this is where the paper towels come in for me. I will just use a paper towel to smooth it out, and I'm pressing down. I'm making sure that everything is adhering really well. Go along the edge. Okay, now I'm going to grab my next piece that's for the side. Make sure it's good. Okay. And get my sponge out. And hopefully you can see this just a little bit. I'm going to pull it across just good and even. And then I'm going to make sure that it's lined up along with my guidelines that I made. Get my paper towel. All right. Oh, this is going to be such a good hold. Now, if you're using 1-inch tape, just make sure it's equal. Make sure that it's half on. You're going to want to do 1/2 inch. Okay? So make sure that it's half on the paper and half on the board. And if you have issues with adherence, you're going to want to look into a couple different things, and we'll talk about that at the end. Just going to get those fuzzes off. So this actually, it just has all these fibers in it. So if you buy a sponge, maybe just buy a plain one. But I've been using this one just for paper stretching for about a couple years now, and it's still good to go. I don't use it for anything else. And I dry it out thoroughly between uses. So now I'm doing the adjacent. Oh, this is so fun. This is actually my first time using Gator board. I've used just about everything else, but Gator board, I've been so looking forward to this, and I love it. So far, it's smooth, it's lightweight, waterproof, but it will still adhere. And as you go along, you want to make sure water isn't seeping. Does that make sense? Like, you'll see if water's seeping under that edge. You want to just be, as it's starting to dry, be wary of that. Make sure there's no bubbles under the tape. Like between the tape and the, see that? I'm going to want to rub those out. And I think the paper towel helps quite a bit. There could be water. And the way you can know is by kind of squishing it up. Make sure there's no water seeping. Because this center is pretty wet, water can eventually seep, especially if you tilt it one way or another. So I'm going to make sure this stays completely flat. You can see, let me hold my phone a different way. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? I've left most of the water in the middle, but it will start to kind of seep. So we don't want water seeping down. I bet that is water. If that happens, I just need to keep going across it and making sure. And something you can do gently is just kind of like blot up some of this water. I'm just gently doing it. I don't want to remove the sizing from the paper at all. Because if you were to go across it rough and scrub it with a paper towel, you could essentially remove some of that sizing, and we don't want to do that. Okay, we have one edge left. Last one. Very exciting. Oh, I love trying new tools and new materials. Very, very fun. Okay, you want to make sure you're getting good adherence to the board and the paper. And check that gap between the paper and the tape. Just check it and make sure that you're not getting seepage of water. Because that's going to be essentially what lifts the tape up and doesn't give a good. As this paper dries, it's going to pull so hard on this tape. So you want to make sure it's good and adhered to bowl. It's pretty wet right there. Now, if I want to, if I feel like that's wet, I can take a dry cloth and go along this and just kind of dry it. Okay, you want to let this dry completely flat. Do not use heat. Just let it dry naturally. You want to at least give it 24 hours to dry. Some artists will go ahead and start painting if they do wet and wet or whatever, and that's fine. But I don't, so I like to let mine dry completely, and then I'll do my pencil sketch or whatever. Different artists do things different ways. This is just the way I do things, and I'm really excited about this. It's so lightweight compared to those boards that I was using. And yeah, like I said, there's still water kind of in the middle, so I want to make sure to leave it horizontal so the water doesn't seep. It's not a lot of water. It's damp. I can turn it and you can see it's just kind of damp. Yep. And so I'm not gonna use a heat tool or anything because you don't want to also release the adhesive. So we're gonna let this dry naturally and we're gonna be patient. So I was just reading the paper that came with the Gator foam board from Cheap Joe's Art Stuff, and it talks about using staples or bulldog clips, which I do have. So here I've got a bunch of bulldog clips. I use those for all kinds of stuff. I use them when I make sketchbooks. I use them when I paint in sketchbooks. Let me just fix this. Okay. So I think this is the same on both sides. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know why they have it on both sides, but it just says to do your drawing as usual on watercolor paper. Soak paper in tub or with brush or sponge until wet through and through. This usually takes 20 to 30 minutes. Put paper on Gator foam. If buckles appear, just lift the paper by the corner and wallpaper with wet brush to board until no more buckles appear. Remove excess water from surface with towel or paper towels, and you are ready to paint. When the corners begin to turn up, you can either staple or use bulldog clips. Leave on board until the painting is completely dry, usually a day or two. Now remove staples or clips and you have a nice flat painting. So that's not something that I've ever tried before. So they're saying to do your sketch, wet both sides, and just make sure it's like suctioned to the board. And then you can actually just start painting. I don't do wet and wet though. So I would have to like let it dry first. And I don't know how that would work, but why don't we just try it as an experiment? I got bulldog clips here and we'll just get it wet. And as it starts to dry, we'll just clip it to the board and we'll just do an experiment. It can't hurt. So once again, I'm going to start on the back side. And I probably need to get a little more water. Looks like I need to make a visit to Wally World and get some more distilled water, huh? You can really buy distilled water anywhere. You don't have to get it at Walmart. Buy it at the grocery store. You can make it yourself. Some people don't worry about it and they just use tap water. I have used tap water. I have used filtered water. If you've got a house filter, that's fine too. Just precautions, you know? Especially if I'm being paid for this painting, I want to make sure, you know, we're using archival supplies, we're using light, fast paint. Why not use distilled water? Just go the extra mile. Make sure you're giving them a painting that's going to withstand the test of time. So I'm just making sure to wet even the edges because that's important too. Now this paper is slightly larger than the board behind it, just ever so slightly. So this is going to be interesting. I have used staples. Who uses staples? Louise DeMassey on YouTube. She uses staples to do her stretching, and she'll use both. She'll use like gum paper tape and staples. Is it overkill? I don't know. And I have done both. I have done staples by themselves. I've done gum paper tape. I've done gummed paper tape and staples, but I have never just done bulldog clips. So this is going to be interesting. I don't like staples because I have a hard time removing them. I really screw up the paper when I'm trying to remove the staples. Maybe I just need a better staple removing tool. The nice thing about Gator foam board is you can use staples and it's waterproof. So like those holes in the board, when next time you stretch it, it's not going to be a problem. If you're using an actual wooden board, those holes in the board can essentially soak in water the next time you go to stretch and can cause the board to retain water. So anyway, that's just something I wanted to point out. I have never used Gator foam board until today. Okay, so I'm going to look at the shininess of it. I'm going to make sure there's no like bubbles. Make sure it's completely flat to the board. No bubbles in the middle or anything. I should probably get my mouse out of here. It's getting wet. My poor mouse and keyboard are both covered in paint splatters. The life of an artist. Okay, it's super wet, and I'm going to just let it sit for a minute. As you can see this time, I didn't do any guidelines or anything. I don't feel like I need to since I'm just clipping it. And the nice part is, if I'm clipping it, hopefully I don't have to cut off any edges. Yeah, it's going about like that far over the edge. You can kind of see like that. And it's going over the edges here just slightly. So this is going to be interesting. I really probably still could use the gum paper tape. I would just have to do it over the edge, which is kind of a pain. I've done it before. All right, I'll come back when this is ready. All right. So it's pretty decent. It's soaking in. Some of the corners are trying to dry, so I want to go ahead and, you know, soak up any of the excess water like it said. I've just got the paper towels I used from the last one. They're not totally dry, but oh well. We just want to get up the excess water, right? You know what's funny? I have not had a cat in my studio for 2 years now. And I'm in a different studio completely, and I still find cat hairs from our kitten Matilda. So I find that to be quite funny. All right, so it's time to clip it. I'm kind of thinking 2 clips per side. Let's see. Might need more than that. This is... Oh boy, there's paint on that clip. You guys. Make sure your clips are clean. I've got paint all over mine. Oh my. Oh boy. Lesson learned. Let me get that off before. Whew, came off. Look, it's an art studio. It's gonna happen. Okay. And then I am going to clip. I feel like the edges are the most important. I'm gonna do this corner. This corner. Oh wait, look at that one. I don't know if that's paper. I'm just gonna put that on the bottom side. Well, and then I feel like I can afford maybe like one here and one here. So let's make sure that one's got paint on it. Lovely, lovely. Okay. This is interesting. I'm worried that it's going to curl here. So I'm actually going to go get one for each of those sides. You know, it's really funny. These are the biggest bulldog clips I've ever had. I have every size. And these were actually an accident. I bought these for my students when I was teaching a youth watercolor class when we did sketchbooks. And I didn't, yet again, look at the size description. I'm notorious for that. And when they came, I had to laugh at how big they were. But now I'm kind of happy that they're this big. Here we go. All right. I don't know. This is interesting. So I'll come back to you when it's dry and I'll show you and we'll see if it worked. Okay. Look at this. It's dry. Look how beautiful. It's like, oh, it's so big I can't show you very well, but it's perfectly flat. The tape stayed beautifully adhered. I'm so happy with this. Honestly. Oh, I'm so happy. Now, you cannot confuse Gator foam board with regular foam board. The regular foam board will bend, it will buckle, and the paper on it is paper. This is plastic. It's matte somehow, but it is plastic. Listen. It's plastic. Anyway, so don't be confused as I was in the beginning. But yeah, I am so pleased with this. This will be my new, I will always forever use Gator foam board. This is awesome. I love how lightweight it is. And that I can just like set it aside between, because you know how sometimes you'll do a painting and then you'll set it aside. Anyway, I do. I am always doing different paintings, especially with my teaching. So each one of my students are working on different projects, and so I have to set mine aside between sessions. Let's check on our other ones and see how they're doing. Check this out. So yes, the edges are curling, but that's it. Everything else is staying taut. Yeah, I don't use that word very often, but I used it. Taut. Look how flat it is. This could work. So if you're looking for a way to stretch your paper that's kind of less work, like the lazy way, I guess you could say, this could work. So yeah, the edges are curling just slightly here and here. But that's not going to matter as much. You can still frame it. Yes, I know I've been in 3 different outfits throughout the course of this video and look a little bit of a mess. It's been a couple of weeks. I know you guys haven't seen any new videos from me, but we all caught the dreaded virus that's going around. And I was down for a good 2 weeks. And it's been rough. So anyway, it took me quite a while and a couple different sessions to film this video. So just excuse my outfit changes. Gotta keep it interesting. I hope that was helpful. Seeing my process in stretching paper. Like I said, if that's not something that you're interested in, if you don't want to go to those links to stretch your paper and you just want to paint, you can just tape it down, or you can spend a little extra and buy like the 300-pound paper. They're quite a luxury to paint on. And also let me know what you think about the Gator foam board. I'm actually really excited about it. I've even been using it just to tape paper on for teaching my students and whatnot. Yeah, let me know what you think. Have you tried stretching paper? Have you had success? Have you not? Would you like a video on troubleshooting paper stretching? It is something that's really important to me because as a professional artist, someone who does commissions for people, I always want to make sure that I'm offering quality. You know, it's a painting that's ready to be framed and it looks professional. It feels nice to paint on. So I'm gonna hop down off my soapbox now. I enjoyed the stretching process. I think it's really relaxing and kind of mesmerizing, but you may not, and that is totally okay. That's the beauty of art, and it's the fun of watercolors. We all get to do things
our own special way. This is mine. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I love your comments. I always appreciate you guys. As always, thanks for being here. I hope you have an amazing week.